And I want to call this meeting, the Monday, February 17th meeting to order of LA Jews for Peace. And we have Yossi Khen, and he's going to be talking about making peace in Northern Ireland. And there's a map of Northern Ireland right next to Yossi. And so before I actually introduce him, let me point out our next two talks in a month. On March 17th, we have Alan Ward. Alan Ward has been a radical since high school, and he's now an emeritus professor. He's at the University of Michigan, and he's been involved in the protests to oppose the genocide. And he's going to talk to us about the anti-Semitism scare at colleges and universities. He's got an amazing record of work and in this field for 40 some odd years. He should be very interesting. The following month on April 21st, we have Jeff Halper, and he's not going to be talking so much about his one state
proposal,
one democratic state. He's going to talk about the Palestinian struggle in the Trump era and how they're trying to cope, and or at least how he sees they should cope with normalization and Trump's new Middle East. So with that, I want to go back to this, and I'll say a few words about Yossi Khen and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, after many years, after 40 some odd years of troubles and fighting that is not unlike between what goes on in Israel-Palestine, they were able to make peace. And Yossi, as a board member of the Abraham Initiative, now you all remember the Abraham Initiative because we had Jimmy, who's the Abraham Initiative American Executive Director, as a Zoom guest about a year ago, or a little less than a year ago. The Abraham Initiative works to make Jewish Palestinian cooperation in education and other kinds of social, non-political things. So they had a 5-day conference in Northern Ireland to learn about how it works there. And my wife and I actually visited Northern Ireland, and we took the famous Black Taxi tour from Belfast, which actually visits some of the sites that I think Yossi will talk about. We all know Yossi, so I don't have to introduce him very much. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Yossi.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share. And can you see all the slides? Can you see?
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify something about the Abraham Initiative. It's an Israeli organization of Israeli Jews and Palestinians who are citizens of Israel. And they've been established 35 years ago. And the main philosophy is to have a society based on share society on all levels, political level, economic, education, culture. In other words, that all the citizens of Israel will live in a country that have a share. Right now, it looks like a wishful thinking as far as Israel today, but organization, even they have the wishful thinking, they don't stop working in order to get something. They do have some activities in Israel that relate to shared society, where special teenagers in high school meet in education and other stuff, but I don't want too much. So the Abraham Initiative adopted the concept of shared society actually from Northern Ireland, because the whole peace agreement in 1998, the main vision is shared society between Protestants, they call loyalists, they don't call themselves Irish, and the Catholic Irish, to share a society in the benefits of both community. This is the whole idea. So they adapted their philosophy in order to do whatever they can inside Israel. So through this, they established very good relationship with a lot of civic societies, organization, including government institution, commissions that implementing whatever take place. I personally established a friendship with one of the women there who is the chair today of the parade commission. She was the chair of the Equality Commission for 25 years. Incredible woman who explained to me so many stuff as far as the life and the problem in Northern Ireland and how they works together. Okay, now just to have a better view.
Yossi, can I interrupt for a
Yeah.
second? First of all, on the top of your screen is a little right arrow that says play. I think if you click that, you'll get a better view of this.
Play.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't that better?
And what is this? Okay.
Okay, and I've made Dick a co-host so that he can help mute people. And people who are not muted, please mute yourself. And Yossi, it's back to you.
Okay. So as you see, that Northern Ireland is a small piece of the whole island of Ireland. But in order to, before I want to talk about this, it's important to have a little bit short history to understand why it was such a fights and troubles. This the period of in Northern Ireland in the context of the British Empire and Republic of Ireland. So I have a short quiz for you. Maybe you'll figure out. What was the first colony of the Great Britain, the British Empire? If anybody can raise their hand and tell me?
Scotland.
India?
No.
Ireland.
Is Ireland, exactly. Was occupied by Great Britain around 800 years ago. And the people in Ireland, through this occupation, never accepted the British rule. There were some who said, yeah, it's okay, but majority of the people in Ireland never accepted the British rule. There was an attempt of rebellion. Many of them, all of them failed until, but before this, through the occupation of Ireland, I want to go to the next slide.
Just put this.
איפה לחץ? Okay. This map of just Northern Ireland and the 6 regions that it's part of Northern Ireland, and why there is a 6. Around 1630, around 300 years ago more, almost 400 years, settlers, Protestant settlers moved from Scotland and England to the north part of Ireland. Maybe because of the land, it was a good, rich agricultural land, but by moving there, and remember, under the British occupation, the Protestants were the privileged community vis-a-vis the Catholics. So when they move there, they displace, and this is it reminds you something, they displace the local peasants of the Irish Catholic and basically force them out almost. from all the pieces of the land. They call this area Ulster. I'm not sure what the meaning of Ulster, but the word Ulster still exists until today, including the political parties and the movement of the Protestants who live in Northern Ireland. In meantime, so they create a majority. You see these 6 counties? If you look by the color, you'll count 6 of them. As a matter of fact, they conquer and they establish 9 counties. But the other 3 counties, they were minority, not majority. And this is going now, jumping forward. In 1919, a new rebellion started in all over Ireland against the British rule. It was a 3 years fight, a military fight. And eventually the British generals said it's impossible to defeat them, and let's enter to a peace negotiations. Because in north part of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, the majority of Protestant, the Great Britain insist that this will be part of Great Britain. It was a division among the rebels and among the IRA, but majority were, in order to bring peace, they were willing to compromise that the rest of Ireland, yeah. Oh, okay, this. So you see the whole green area is the Republic, Independent Republic of Ireland since 1922. There was a brief civil war among the Catholic Irish because there were some segment of the IRA who refused to compromise, and the majority, and they've been defeated, and Republic of Ireland became an independent country, and Northern Ireland, with majority Protestants, continued to be part of Great Britain. Now, because of the Protestants have been given by the British all the economic power, all the political power, all the land, they were so dominated the life in Northern Ireland and so sectarian by it completely ignored the needs and the rights of the minority Catholics in Northern Ireland, which led to a lot of resentment and anger among the Catholic Irish in Northern Ireland. And in the early 60s, they established the civil rights movement, they copy from the civil rights movement of the United States. They have been talking about a full equality in jobs, education, housing, because they were discriminated all over. The unemployment among Catholic Irish was 3 times more than among the Protestants, because all the big business in Northern Ireland controlled by the Protestants, and many of them just didn't care not to hire any Catholics. In some area in Northern Ireland, the unemployment reached over 30%, 35%. And a lot of
I think
poverty.
your sound is cutting out.
Huh?
Do other people hear him?
Can you hear me? You have any issue of hearing me?
I don't have issue.
Okay. So anyway, so the civil rights movement, the main fight was not to secede from Great Britain, but asking a full equality within the territory that called Northern Ireland. Now, just to what I learned is 3 territories inside Great Britain: Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. They do have kind of a semi-autonomy. They have their own parliament, or they call it assembly, And they can pass all kind of domestic rules as long as it's not contradict the Great Britain. They don't have a say on foreign policy. Only the government in London of Great Britain can say, and they can run for the election as their own parties to the British Parliament to get representatives there in order to push their agenda. So this is how the political life. So when the civil rights movement start making all kind of peaceful demonstrations, the British Army, which was present there, decided in in 1972 that this will not be permitted, even a peaceful demonstrations. The demonstrations have been there anyway, and the British Army came and opened fire. They killed 11 demonstrators, and dozens have been wounded. And they call it in Northern Ireland or even Ireland as the Bloody Sunday. It was so horrific that people in Dublin, the capital of Ireland, they burned the British embassy. And it's almost caused for Britain to cut the diplomatic relationship of Ireland. They managed not to do it, but this was a turning point for the IRA, who declared war on Great Britain. And this is what they call the Troubles started. Now, why the Troubles? Because it was a violent confrontations between the IRA, the British Army, and the military units of the Protestant community that called the Orange Order, or they have a UVF that's called Ulster Volunteer Defense, UVD. Part of the story that we heard that was pretty ugly, on those days, the police of Northern Ireland, the police, here I'll show you some badge. You see on the bottom one, this was the badge of the police in Northern Ireland. So it's called the Royal Ulster
Constabulary.
Yeah, anyway, this was the badge which basically saying we are the police of only the Protestants. As a matter of fact, only 3% of the police force until the peace agreement was Catholic. And there were Catholic who will have to make their allegiance to the Protestant order in order to be accepted to the police. So part of the practice that we heard from the police, they have been raiding the Catholic area, kidnap some activists, not necessarily only the IRA, even people who do not believe in violence. They kidnapped them, they took them to the area of the Protestants were known to be very hostile, and threw them right there, and they've been lynched and beaten to death. This is part of the police practice, who overall, you say police supposed to serve all the community. This did not happen in Northern Ireland. So through the times of the Troubles, around 3,500 people have been killed. Just put it in proportion. The entire population of Northern Ireland is no more than 1.9 million people. That's it. In the document which they gave us, they said to compare to the US population, it's like 700,000 deaths in the US, the 3,500, and tens of thousands wounded and property destructions. And the killing were on both sides. The paramilitary have been engaged in ongoing assassinations and killing of family member of the leaders, and the destruction and bombs, on and on and on. Now, before I continue, I just put some statistics. So Northern Ireland is, you see, 16.75% of the entire island of Ireland. Population at 23 is 1.92 million. At 21 census, it was the first time that Catholic in Northern Ireland became the majority. And around 43.5 are Protestant and other Christian, which I don't know what it mean by other Christian, but I know they're all kind of denominations. In the Republic of Ireland, 69% are Catholic, 4.6 Protestant, and 14.5 no religion or atheist, and the rest of other religion. Okay, so after the end of this endless killing, something happened. And I tell you what happened from the first panel, the first evening when I came to Belfast. There was a panel of political parties representing the Protestants and the Catholic. And the guy who represented the Protestant, he told us this and explained to us what happened. He said the British generals came to then Prime Minister John Major before Tony Blair, and they told him that the British army cannot defeat the IRA militarily, cannot. They are arresting people, they executed people, and all the time new people came they've been recruiting. More the killing, more they recruit young Irish Catholic who joined the IRA. And they said, we have to find another way. We're not gonna be able to defeat it. It's just gonna be a killing and killing forever. The representative of the Sinn Féin, who was in the meeting, said similar things. He said the Sinn Féin, the IRA, because Sinn Féin, it's considered to be the political wing of the IRA. They don't involve in killing or violence. Although they gave a lot of cover to the IRA, they never criticized them during this time, during the Troubles. And they said, we understood there is no way in the world that we can defeat a strong British army. We don't have the power to do it. We can hurt them, we can cause them casualties, but there's no way in the world we can defeat them, which became a stalemate. And we have to find another way. So both sides said we have to find another way. And this came the first time an idea of maybe to try to find a political solutions to the conflict in Northern Ireland, which is not a military solution. They said there is no way militarily it can be resolved. Meantime was election in Britain, and Tony Blair was elected as a prime minister, and somewhere in 95, 96 was the beginning of informal negotiations, trying to test the water, what each side want. And it took a long time until the formal negotiations that involved also Senator George Mitchell from United States. And I think I'm going to show you the pictures of who have been involved. On the left side is Gerry Adams, who was the president of the Sinn Féin, which, as I said, it was the political wing of the IRA, Tony Blair, that you all know, George Mitchell from United States, and his name David Timble, the leader of Ulster Unionist Party, which was the largest Protestant political party in Northern Ireland. What is interesting about him, that I read about him, that he was considered to be more moderate. He was willing to reach out to the Catholic community, and he ran to be the president of this party, and he won by a solid majority, not overwhelming, but around 58% of the vote. He got there, and he was willing to enter to negotiations. He died in 2018, and his funeral, many of the Catholic leaders have been attended because they felt that he was a guy that was sincerely wanted to make peace and resolve politically in Ireland. So eventually then came the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, and 8 parties signed on this, in addition to the British and the Republican Ireland governments. 8 political parties signed on the agreement. There were some much more extreme group who refused to sign on this, but they promised not to interfere. They said to object, but they said we're not going to use violence to try to stop it. We just don't agree on the compromise.
Yossi,
yeah.
just who object to this? I mean, it wasn't so clear.
Okay. In both communities, there were some splinter group from the IRA opposed this because it did not include unification of Northern Ireland with Ireland. Because this was the beginning.
Okay,
this was the same thing. There were some more extreme group among the Protestants who felt there is no way to compromise with a terrorist. For them, any Irish almost was a terrorist, and you cannot compromise. You just have to fight them until you defeat them. Of course, with the help of the British Army, they could not do it. The Unionist paramilitary was not strong enough. But even as I said, I mentioned that the British generals also saying we cannot defeat the IRA. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So there was a referendum in Northern Ireland to what people think about this. 71% in Northern Ireland approved the agreement. The hotel that I stayed, it called Europa Hotel in Belfast, was the headquarters of the campaign to vote yes on the campaign. The turnout was unbelievable, 81%. In the United States, it's a dream. In many countries, it's a dream to see such a high turnout, which is mean for majority of the people there. Now, the division among the Catholic, the approval of the peace agreement was close to 90%. In the Protestants, it was 58%. So the average together was 71%. Now, as I said, the beginning of the negotiations, the Sinn Féin and IRA said we want to join the Republic of Ireland. The Protestants said we're not going to give up our privilege. This was the starting point. So the end result was in a Good Friday peace agreement is the power sharing of the government institution all have to be 50-50, which in the Protestant, some of them, they object, but this was a give and take for the fact that the IRA, most of them, as I said, not all of them, and the Sinn Féin agrees that Northern Ireland will stay part of Great Britain, but in exchange, they wanted a completely full equality on all levels, starting with the government institutions, which is mean in Northern Ireland and Scotland, I don't know in Wales, the Prime Minister called First Minister. It's called First Minister. And in Northern Ireland, they are sharing. You have the First Minister and the Second Minister. First Minister can be either from the Catholic, from the Sinn Féin, or from the Protestant, the political party, what's the name again? The Ulster Unionist Party, which is the largest party there. Now, there is a provision there which says that if majority of people in Northern Ireland want to join if majority in the referendum want to join the Republic of Ireland, it will be accepted. And I ask in the first night when they have the panel discussion, I asked the panelists, today, majority of is Catholics, not overwhelming, not over 50%, 47%. I said, what happens if most of them want, all of them want to join? How can you react to this? And for my surprise, all of them told me, including those who represent the Sinn Féin and the other Irish, they said it's not going to happen. And I said, how come? And they said that they remind us that the original fight of the Catholic in Northern Ireland was the civil rights movement, which they asked a full equality. They did not ask to secede from to join the Republic of Ireland. And if the equality on all levels do exist, and in many ways they already exist, then people don't see really the need to secede or to join the Republic of Ireland because it's unknown for them what this is mean. Too complicated. Economy, housing, education, they say it's too complicated. If people feel comfortable, the fact that there is now equality in different level, then there is no need anymore for to think about joining the Republic of Ireland. Now, the third point, in order to implement the peace agreement, you need a specific commissions that are dealing with different issues. I'm going to go later to show you what the commission. Another point, dismantling all the paramilitary groups on both sides, so there will not be potential violence. Complete withdrawal of the British Army from Northern Ireland. And let me tell you something related to this. When I flew to Dublin from Los Angeles, and then I took a bus, which is only 2 hours ride from Dublin to Belfast. Very comfortable bus. And right next to me sat a guy, it was funny. He went to Los Angeles to watch football games, 2 games, and came back to Belfast. I mean, the guy maybe have extra money. But anyway, so I told him, when we cross to Northern Ireland or checkpoint, can you please let me know? And the guy next to him, he said, we're already in Northern Ireland. And I said, really? I didn't see no border, no checkpoint. And this was part of the deal. Before the peace agreement, it was the British army checkpoint. They check every car, and in order for you to pass to Northern Ireland, they completely checked and controlled the border. And this issue completely disappeared. They no longer exist. And if you live in Northern Ireland, when you want to go to Ireland, you feel like you're going to the same country. You don't need a visa. You don't need, nobody will stop you. You just drive or take a bus and you can notice. I think Jeff told me that he noticed when it's different. I think was the yellow line versus the white line on the side, right, of the road, something like this.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. I didn't pay attention to these colors, but anyway, he told me already in Northern Ireland. I couldn't tell the difference. It's all beautiful green, a lot of agriculture area and fields, look very nice. Okay, so part of the agreement, as I said, Northern Ireland could continue to be part of Great Britain. And they already mentioned and open borders with the Republic of Ireland. Now, before I continue, I want to know if you have any questions about whatever I said.
Well, I certainly do, but let other people maybe raise their hand if they have a question.
I saw Dick raise his hand, right?
I'll wait. I'll just wait till the end.
Okay. You want to ask now, Jeff, or you wait until I finish?
I'll wait to the end also.
Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, I'm gonna start. Okay, so this is the major commission. I think there are other ones, but the most important commission, which this person that I met, Evelyn Collin, she was chairing the equality commissions for 25 years. And she explained to me what this mean. As I said, before the peace agreement, the Catholic part of the Isle of Northern Ireland were completely discriminated on jobs. Unemployment is high, and because the unemployment was high, poverty was all over among the Catholic community. And they have a lot of enforcement on the jobs. The Equality Commission introduced a policy that every workplace have to have almost 50-50 as far as the workplace. Now, if let's say a business that owned by Protestants who refused to hire Catholic, it did happen, she said, especially in the beginning. The Equality Commission had the power to give them, to make them to pay very, very high fine if they don't hire Catholic. A fine that could cause them even to go bankrupt. They realized very quickly that to pay fine is not worth it because it can cause them to go under. So they realized that they have to do and to enforce and to accept Catholic to be as part of the workforce. As a side story, I want to tell you something. As I was in a hotel in downtown Belfast called Europa Hotel, a young white guy came to clean my room. And I told him, hey, listen, since I went to hotels, especially in the Western world, I never saw a young white guy working in housekeeping. You see Latinos, you see Africans, but to see, so I asked him, what is the story? And he said, of course, I'll explain to you. I'm coming from a Catholic family. My parents and grandparents, for many years of their lives, they were unemployed because many jobs that owned by the refused to give them a job. And they told me, he was maybe 20 years old, student. They told me, what whenever somebody give you a job, you never say no. Never, never say no. You just take it. So he said it was an opening in the hotel. He said, as a matter of fact, they have good benefits. So I apply and they hired me. And my parents told me, you did the right thing. Don't feel bad about this, you know, because everybody else who worked in the housekeeper, many of them were Africans, mostly women, who work in the hotel as a housekeeping. And he was the only white guy that I saw on the floor cleaning. So it was interesting to hear from him how much the issue of jobs was so important for the Catholic community. Anyway, now the parade commissioner, and you ask, parade commissions? Why is there need a parade commissions? Well, the history of the Protestant community, in order to work on their identity, one of the ways they did it is through parade. 95% of the parade of Northern Ireland are, they call the Orange Order. And in the past, before the peace agreement, they marched under the police protection in the Catholic area and used all kind of derogatory slogan to humiliate the Catholic community. Something like I called like the, you know, the flag march day by the settlers in East Jerusalem, almost the same character, to provoke and humiliate the Palestinians in East Jerusalem. It was the same concept. And it's caused a lot of resentment and sometimes caused violence because they were young Irish teenager or, you know, who start throwing stone of them. And this deteriorate very quickly to a violent, even killing by the police. So the Parade Commission set completely new rule in a new Northern Ireland. First, the Orange Order can march, but only in the Protestant area. And no derogatory or racist or hate slogan. They need to get now from the police today what slogan they're going to have. And this woman, Evelyn, she's now the chair of the parade, and she said 95% of the parade now get approved because they know if they will have any sign that insulting or hate, the parade will not be approved. Completely different ballgame of how parade can be. Now, as you see, there are 3,600 parades a year. This is unbelievable. I mean, few parades a day if you do the calculation. As far as now, a Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission, unlike the Equality Commission, dealing with abuse. It can be abused by the police. It can be abused by work. Any kind of abuse, the Human Rights Commission are open for people to come and complain. The Police Commission. Police, as I told you before, the police in the beginning, before the peace agreement, was only 33% Catholic. The goal was to get 50-50. As today, only 37% of the police force are Catholic. And they explained me why. This was interesting to know why. When a young Catholic want to go to the police, get recruited, few days later, he come to the police, he said, I'm changing my mind, I don't want to go to the police. So they start investigating why. And they found out that the parents or family member older still carry the resentment and the anger against the police before. They told him, you cannot join these police which are only serving the Protestant, which is not true, but a lot of pressure, and so it takes much longer time to reach the goal. Reconciliation Commission was actually established only 2 years ago. And it's very similar to Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, where people come and tell about family members that have been killed and comforting the killer and all this with a promise that nobody will put on trial, just to, how do you use the right word, to close the book or to figure out what happened. Now, it looks like that I'm running out of time, so I'm going to jump to the police reform. Look, the differences. What you see on the top is the badge today. And you have the name is the Police Service of Northern Ireland versus Ulster, that this is mean Ulster only serving the Protestants, and very large crown on the top representing the British crown, the loyalists. You still have the crown here, very small one. You hardly see it, but then you have the, I believe, the olive branch, the sense of justice, completely different, without really mentioning any community. I wanted to talk about the wall, but it's looked like I want to give you a chance to just show you a wall, and then it's still the wall exists, and it's a long discussion about the wall. So I'll leave it for right now and ask people to ask questions. Samir, you unmute. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Yossi.
Hi.
Yeah, that was interesting. All right, because there are a lot of comparisons with the Palestinian-Israeli situation. And anyway, what was the status of the Irish and the Northern Irish before the agreement, before the peace agreement? What was their status?
Are you talking about the Catholic community?
Yes, yes, of course. In Northern Ireland, I mean, before the agreement.
Well, I tell you something. The Protestants, who were majority, never called themselves Irish. They called themselves Protestant, the Ulster community, or loyalists. Loyalists to the British Empire, to the British Great Britain.
Okay.
When you say Irish, you're actually talking about the Catholic.
The Catholic. Yes.
As I said before the peace agreement, a discrimination was on level, on job and education, on housing. The housing department of the Northern Ireland government was completely controlled by the Protestants. They dominated the assembly, they dominated the political the institution in Northern Ireland. So they have been giving a special privilege to Protestants when it comes to housing. And there were cases where people have been forced from their home in order to house Protestants, and they have to find somewhere else or became homeless. As on jobs, as I said, they were discriminated, which caused in certain part of Northern Ireland unemployment of 35% unemployment. The unemployment of the Protestant was much lower, was less than 10%. So this was, and then was the violence of the British Army and the Unionist paramilitary group and the police, which only served the Protestant area. So this was the status. It started as a civil rights movement, it turned to be a violent after after the Bloody Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, my question is that are they considered citizens? Were they considered citizens of England or Ireland or what?
Okay.
I mean,
Because
Can they get a passport? Can they? I mean, what is?
because
Yeah.
Northern Ireland is part of Great Britain. All of them are citizens of Great Britain. Everybody who lives in Northern Ireland, both the Catholic and Protestant, or anybody who lives there, is a citizen of Great Britain.
Of Great Britain. Okay, so they have passport,
Remember,
British passport. Okay.
It's a semi-autonomy, but they're part of Great Britain.
Yes.
They were like before. So when they've been fighting for equal rights, they appeal to the British Parliament that ignore them. Of course, there were parliament members in the British Parliament who were sympathized to the Irish demand of equality, but many times, even in Labour parties, they ignore them. Okay, maybe I'll go now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Dorothy.
Anyway, I mean, their situation is much better than the Palestinians in the West Bank.
Yeah, it's a day and night.
So that's what I was going to say. That I mean, the Protestants didn't consider the Catholics subhuman, the way the Israelis feel the Palestinians are subhuman. I don't know if they even had the ability in those days to carpet bomb all of Ireland and destroy it, and destroy its education and all its museums and its libraries and its literature and do a whole destroy the whole civilization. And I don't know that they would have if they had that ability. I just, would love to think that you can make a peace agreement. I just think that it's the Israelis just, I know a lot of Israelis because I do business with them, and the things that they say would make your blood curdle. I won't repeat the things that they say, but Lindsay is the tip of the iceberg for these people. She's right wing. She's moderate compared to these guys. So I just don't know what's going to happen. I have a feeling that what Trump is proposing and Netanyahu wants, somehow 2 million people are going to be taken out of Gaza and put God knows where.
No, but with the Palestinian situation now, it is clear. I mean, if Israel decide today to make the West Bank and
Amir, it's not your turn to talk. Let her talk. Don't interfere. You're not running the show. Let Yossi control. Take one at a time. It's not your time.
Okay.
It's my time. No, it was my time, Uri. It was my time and I was talking.
Oh, Samir, let me go to
No,
Jeff.
I didn't finish. So don't, I mean...
I would like Yossi to answer my question.
Yes, but I mean, that was, I was still talking when you asked the question. So...
But I passed to Dorothy, so now the next is Jeff. We can come back to you, Samir. But
all right.
Yeah, thank you, Yossi. But I think Dorothy had a question that you didn't answer, didn't you, Dorothy?
Yeah, what does he think that does he think the Irish would have done to the Northern Irish would have done to the Southern to Ireland what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians? That kind of hatred, that kind of considering them subhuman? Or are we talking about a whole different situation?
I don't see a question. That's just a statement. And,
okay.
No, I'm asking you a question. What do you think?
What is the question? The question
is, do you think that the Irish would have done the Northern Irish would have done to the Protestants and so the Catholics in Ireland what the Israelis would do to the Palestinians?
Of course, I believe they would have done it.
It's a sheer speculation. What if?
Many people talking. I'm still not clear about the question. Can you repeat without interfering with other people?
Do you think that the Irish would have done to each other what the Israelis did doing to the Palestinians in Gaza? Would they have, if they had the ability in those days to carpet bomb them and destroy their whole civilization, would they have done it?
I tell you something, the British Army, from whatever I know the history, never carpet bombing Northern Ireland. They have troops on the ground, and they use the troop on the ground do suppression mostly in the Catholic area. But they never sent the Air Force to carpet bombing Northern Ireland. So it never really happened. Because if you carpet bombing Belfast, you're going to kill a lot of Protestants also, because they live in many areas in a mixed area. So this was not the issue of carpet bombing. But as I said, the British generals, I want to repeat, told John Major and then Tony Blair later that they cannot defeat the IRA militarily. They have to find another way, a political path to resolve the conflict. And the same thing happened from the other side. So these are the started.
But there wasn't a kind of visceral hatred.
A hatred exists, yes. And the hatred did not disappear completely, especially the older generations.
But they considered the other people human. They considered
now among younger generations born after the peace agreement, the hatred almost don't exist.
But they didn't consider the other Irish people. They didn't consider the Southern Irish, the Irish Republic people subhuman.
Yeah, you know, when you have a national conflict, hate there, and the fact that you sign peace agreement, the hate does not disappear. But you can control it and you can educate. Because one thing that I heard again and again, that in Northern Ireland, unlike the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there is a will from both sides to ensure that the peace is working.
Yeah.
So why you don't see, and I repeat, the word will was the key word. And they will have the will. And each time they have a conflict, they find a way to resolve this. And the one thing I did not tell you, I'll give you an example how it works in Northern Ireland. As I said, they have an assembly, yes? And today, the Sinn Féin is the largest political party. Now, in many parliaments, if you are majority in the parliament, you can pass any law that you want, even if the opposition doesn't like it. But in Northern Ireland, it works completely different. In order to pass a law in Northern Ireland Assembly, you need a majority from both parties to approve it. Otherwise, it's not a law. This is very interesting concept to ensure that there will not be a domination by one side on the other. A way to be sure that whatever law they pass is basically majority of both sides agree to this law. Can you imagine Israeli Knesset pass these kind of laws?
I can't imagine the Israeli Knesset.
Yeah, okay. But not only Israeli, a lot of parliaments around the world, those who have the majority, they just pass a law, whatever they want, and that's it, even by majority of one. But in Northern Ireland, they do everything in their power to be sure they're not going back to the violence. All the communities, most people there, they see the benefit of the peace agreement as far as the equality in jobs, education, housing, discrimination. It's not.
I mean, I know this is supposed to apply to Israel, but I just don't see how it does because of the visceral hatred of the Israelis for the Palestinians and not considering them even human beings and just wanting them to be taken away and go someplace else or all die or whatever they can do to get their land back from the river to the sea, which is their phrase, not the Palestinians' phrase, by the way.
I'm gonna
let somebody else.
Yeah, I don't want to go because the subject now is Northern Ireland. Okay, Jeff, and after Jeff will be Dick. I see.
Okay, thank you, Yossi. It's amazing the similarities between what my understanding of Israel-Palestine and what you just described, things that I didn't understand. Like the police were only on one side, sort of like the police in the West Bank. But what struck me most was when you said the generals, the the British generals and the Sinn Féin generals all said that there can't be a military solution and they had to have something else. And that's exactly what I find when I study South Africa, that both sides wanted this to happen. And in Northern Ireland, both sides wanted it to happen. And the problem, as we all know, in Israel-Palestine is that the Israelis are pretty happy with the way things are going, and they don't want to change. And until somehow the Israelis decide it's in their benefit to have some peace, nothing will happen. But let me ask my question. You said that the militias on both sides had to disarm. How well did that disarmament go? Did they really disarm? And the second question I want to ask is, the Good Friday Agreement was like 25 years ago. How stable is it now? How much friendship is there? How much exchange is there between the Catholics and the Protestants? Is it like the cold peace between Egypt and Israel, or is it like the warm peace that we had until a month ago between the US and Canada?
Okay, first I'll go to the military, paramilitaries. They didn't go to detail, but one of them explained to me how did it happen. They set a date. The people involved in a negotiation, they all know who is the military, paramilitary groups, and they knew who have the weapons. And in each community, they gave them date and time, or week or whatever, to turn out the weapons. They can march with a uniform, but not with weapons. They didn't want to completely to cancel, because for the Protestant, it was part of the culture. But they say you can march, but no weapons. That's it. You have to turn the weapons. However, like many other Western societies, they have issue of criminal gangs that carry weapons, which have nothing to do with the conflict. Like you have it in the US, you have it in England, you have it in Scotland, and this is the police work to deal with this. And they said they're facing this, but this have nothing to do with the political, military wing that they use weapons. Okay, now the second question. First, this coming Good Friday in 25, it will be 27 years already. And you said how it's holding. As I said, and again that I heard, there is a strong will from both sides to ensure it's working. And as long you have the will, then it's going to work. The will can break if it will be a tremendous violation of the agreement by one side. But in order to avoid violation, they said what I said. Remember, I said how the assembly works? Sinn Féin, as the largest party who represent the Catholic, cannot pass, even though they are the largest party, cannot pass any law because they need the approval of majority of the Unionist party. So they negotiate, and they do find a way to pass a law that agree on both sides. This is how you ensure there will not be a violation. So in the beginning was more difficult because of the hatred, as Dorothy said, and the resentment and the mistrust, a lot of mistrust. They kept the wall. But if you meet a young people, like I met a group of young people in a pub in the last night of in Belfast, in Halloween party. We're also celebrating Halloween. This pub is very integrated of young people, both Catholic, and as a matter of fact, when I ask some of them, are you Catholic or are you Protestant? And they all said, we just Irish. We don't care about their religious affiliation anymore. And among young people in Ireland, especially those who were born after the peace agreement, huge majority of them define themselves as Irish, period. And among them, I met a group of six of them, even danced with them. I have a video. They were mixed. And for them, they said it's normal. For them, it's normal to be together. They don't see like their parents or grandparents. They don't have the resentment. They don't have the baggage. They don't have the mistrust. It's just another world for them, you know. This is what sometimes when I explain some Israeli Jews the benefit of peace, and I describe that the benefits, people having a hard time to accept this. Like they're saying, what are you talking about? Arab is Arab. They're always going to hate us, you know. Anyway, but this is what at least I witnessed beside hearing all the speeches. Another thing that it's what they do, some area, you know, I didn't talk about the wall too much, but the wall exists mostly in working class area. But some area of the wall have been demolished, and instead of the wall, they build a joint community center. I'm not talking about a small room in a building. I mean something 2-3 floors building with all kind of activities, and it's a joint right in the area on the border of both community, and children from both communities are having all the activities, culture, theater, watching movies, sport. And I asked them, you know, Northern Ireland, when they go to World Cup, they're running as an independent country. I don't know if you were about this. Same thing true about Scotland and Wales. England have their own separate national team. So I asked them, because I love soccer, I asked them, is the soccer team is integrated? They said very much. It's almost half and half. Mostly young generation, right? And how they work fine, very good. And they have 2 coaches, one Protestant, one Catholic, coaches. And they're not very good team, you know, they're not doing well, but it's a small country, only 1.9 million people, you know, but for many, as I said, young people, it's working. So if you look at the history of the peace agreement, in the beginning was still a little bit violent, but then it's completely disappeared. And they do find a way because of, as I said, they have the will. Okay, now I'm sorry, Gideon. Oh, sorry, Dick was,
Okay.
Gideon, you'll be after Dick.
Well, I also had a question related to South Africa. In South Africa, apartheid ended with political equality, but the whites retained most of the farms, most of the businesses, and still kind of they're the upper class for the most part. I mean, lots of white people are middle class and a few are working class, but most are upper class. How has that changed in Northern Ireland? Has the economic inequality changed, or you know, within each group?
Well, you know, Northern Ireland, many countries in the Western world, it's a capitalist economy. So you have the issue of as workers' rights or workers' salary, whatever, a problem like. But when they signed the peace agreement, because of the unique situation of the Catholic community, which was high unemployment and poverty, this much more improved. They say today in Northern Ireland, when it comes to the equality of jobs, at least between the communities, is day and night for them, unlike South Africa, that many of the African in South Africa, but you know, you're talking about much smaller nations, so it's much easier to deal with. 1.9 million people versus I don't know how many people in South Africa, 40, 50 million,
By now. Yeah.
something like this, and much more complex society. So it was much easier to deal with this. I don't know if in South Africa they have the Equality Commission, like they did in Northern Ireland, that to ensure that people will not be discriminated in job. And it's very powerful commission with a lot of teeth to ensure that not be. So as I said, Northern Ireland is not a perfect society. As a matter of fact, they told me that there is still poverty in both communities, like in every Western country, and they deal with it sometime okay and sometime not so okay, like in many countries, in the US, in England, in France, they're not always putting a lot of energy to fix this. But this is not issue of the Irish, the Catholic versus Protestant. Now it's the economic system or social system. But the government in Northern Ireland much more involved, let's say, than the United States about the life and the community and the social welfare and all this. Okay, I hope it's answered the questions.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Okay, Gideon, I think.
Yeah. So looking at the way the Good Friday Accord achieved, there were involvement of the Clinton administration at the time, the St. Mitchell, and I never figure out how much he helped or how much the might of the US really impacted the result. But the fact is, I know Clinton took a lot of credit for the Good Friday Accord. So the question is, A, are they still involved by any way or mean? At least in the first few years they were. But is the Irish right now give the American any credit for achieving this peace? And I'm trying to think about what I would like them to do when it comes to Israel-Palestine, to the American, yes. So do they give them any credit? Do they even mention them?
I didn't hear too much. It just mentioned the George Mitchell and Clinton, but the real negotiations, the nuts and bolts of negotiations was between the Sinn Féin in one side and the Unionist Party in other side. When sometime was an issue, so George Mitchell as a mediator intervened. But this was the nuts and bolts of negotiation. But government of Britain and government of Republic of Ireland, they were just watching. But they did not participate in day-to-day of the negotiation because after all, it's the parties that involved in a conflict need to negotiate. And they and they told Britain what we want from you. And they said, we want from you to remove the British army from the Northern Ireland. And they agree if all kind of security agreement, there will not be violent, which did happen. Now, I just want to mention something about George Mitchell. George Mitchell spent a lot of energy on this. This is true. And I don't know if you remember when Obama became president, he appointed George Mitchell special envoy to the Middle East. Yes. And what happened after 3 months, he quit. And he said that he was not giving any power, just a ceremonial, and he's not interested. He wanted to see the real stuff happening. I don't know how much was his power, but because there was a will, and I said it again and again, on both sides to negotiate and come to agreement. So George Mitchell played in the background as a mediator or helping or advisor, but his work was relatively easy.
That's not the way they talk about it, Yossi, but I think one of the interesting things that Uri just put a comment there, that they basically stopped the flow of money and arms to the Catholics. So that was a pressure point, probably. But okay, I think that's something I probably want to read more. It's interesting. People forget, and we are talking about always the American need to put some pressure on the partner. This is a good example if they really put an end to the money, because the Catholic in the U.S., the Irish Catholics, they were the biggest funder of those groups. So yeah, okay, thank you, Yossi.
Okay. Okay.
My turn?
Is any before Samir?
Yeah.
I just want to see if anybody
Yeah.
would
Yeah, I want
want to. Wait, Samir, please. If anybody who never asked questions that wanted to speak or ask. Okay, Samir.
All right. I just want to mention that I was married to an Irish American for 35 years. And when we were in Syria in 1981,
My sympathies, Samir.
that's all right. In 1981, Pat's cousin came from America to visit us in Damascus for a couple of weeks. And she met the head of the British Cultural Center in Damascus and fell in love, and they got married. And I asked, after they get married, like in a matter of 2 weeks, I asked that the head of the British Cultural Center at that time, who was British, and I said to him, when are you going to solve the Irish problem? And his answer was, whenever you solve the problem between Syria and Lebanon, then the Irish problem will happen. And I said, well, yeah, that's a fair question. At that time, 81, it was the civil war in Lebanon. And actually, in 1990, the civil war in Lebanon ended. And at that time, he was in England, and I was in America. And then he came to visit us in Los Angeles. And then at that time, I asked him the question, okay, isn't that now the time to solve the Irish? And he said, yeah, I think it just, it needs the American administration support or help. And I said, well, probably it's coming. Clinton is coming and something is going to happen. And it really, indeed, in 1998, it happened. So whatever, his prediction was right. It just needed the American participation, and that will happen. So I just wanted to mention that's part of the history. But now my second comment will be, if we want to compare the Irish-British problem with the Palestinian-Israeli problem, there is a big difference. The big difference is that the Northern Ireland became part of the Great Britain, and they made them citizens of Great Britain. And then there is Southern Ireland, which is independent Ireland. Now, to Israel-Palestine, maybe you can talk about the Palestinians of 1948 who became citizens, and the problem solved. So there was no issue with the Palestinian who became Israeli citizens, and that's it. The issue is with the Palestinian in the West Bank and Gaza, which they are not citizens and they are stateless. And that's the big difference. It is much easier, of course, for the Irish problem to solve. I mean, it was an issue of discrimination, but they are already citizens of the state. So it wasn't that hard to really solve. But with the Israeli-Palestinian, it is a big difference. I mean, you're talking about 5 million Palestinians who are stateless. And actually, the problem would be solved right now if they say, okay, annex the West Bank and get the Strip and make them equal citizens of the state. That's it. End of the story. I mean, if you really look at it, that's the problem, that these people in Gaza Strip are not considered nothing, or in the West Bank. They are stateless. So, of course, I mean, they are fighting for everything to be considered as a human being. They are still considered by Israel as subhumans. And they just go and bomb them and carpet bomb them and whatever. So that's the difference. I cannot, I mean, say that what's the solution. If we want to compare, the solution is just make the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip citizens of the state of Israel, and that's it. And it doesn't matter what you call it, Israel or Palestine or whatever, but make them citizens and end of the conflict, end of war. That's what I see it as a solution. And you cannot say that, oh, no, it cannot happen, because it already happened in 1966. 1965, 1966, the Israel ended the military rule in Palestine and make the Palestinian citizen. So it already happened, and it's been 58 years. They are living fine. It's been successful, that Palestinian and living with Israelis in the same state, one state, and they call it Israel proper. Fine. So what they need to do is just to expand that to the West Bank and Gaza Strip and make them citizens, and that's it. End of story. One state living together equally.
Samir, do you have a question?
That's it. No. Thank you. No question.
The only thing I make a comment that I don't know any viable Palestinian organization or movement is suggesting to be citizen of Israel. I don't know anybody like this. I know that they want to end the occupations. This is consensus.
You mean
in the occupations?
You mean in the West Bank or inside Israel? I mean, who you're talking about?
Talking about those who live under occupation in West Bank and Gaza. I didn't hear any viable Palestinian organizations are suggesting to be Israeli citizens. They want to end the occupations. But I don't want to.
No.
Yeah, I disagree with you, Yossi.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
okay.
Maybe
anyway,
the question
it's not the topic.
It's not the topic, but I'm talking about viable Palestinian organization. You could not hear anyone of saying this, you know.
No, but you see, I mean, they say it different.
Saying it, but not Palestinians saying it.
No. All Palestinians say it, but different way. They say one democratic state.
No,
that's what they mean.
PLO official line. No, this is not true. Okay, but let's go to Dick.
No, that's the PFLP consider that.
Dick, you have to unmute.
Ellie and Uri have their hands up.
Okay, so maybe Ellie. Can I just ask you a favor? I know we're all dealing with Israeli-Palestinian, but is there any way you can stick to the subject? Because I don't want this session to be debate about Israel-Palestine occupation, the PLO, who represent the Palestinian, who is not. Let's stick to the subject, please. Because I have a lot to say, but I prefer not this time. Ellie, you wanted to ask a question?
Not a question, just a comment. I'm always amazed at your ability to synthesize a lot of material, share it with us. Really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. Learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Uri?
Yeah. First of all, Yossi, thank you very much. I learned a lot. A lot of the details that you talked about the whole thing, I never really dwelt into, so I learned a lot of the details. So thank you for that. I just want to make a comment as a response to Samir. If the issue was a citizenship, Jordan gave citizenship to the West Bank, Lebanese, Syria, and the Egyptians didn't want to do it because they wanted to perpetuate the issue. So it's too easy for you to say just a matter of citizenship. Now, another thing, if Trump would want to solve the whole thing, he can give 10 million green cards, 5 to the Palestinians, 8 to the Israelis, move everybody to the United States and get all the real estate. Anyway, get me off the whole thing. I don't want to continue on this thing because I don't think that the citizenship is the issue. It's one of them, maybe, but it's not the issue.
Okay,
Um,
Dick.
I want to follow up on what Uri said. There are 2 million Palestinians who are Israeli citizens, but I don't think that is it's not as simple as it sounds because I have a son-in-law who is one of the 2 million, and they're bitterly discriminated against. They lead totally segregated lives, second-class citizens. So, I mean, it isn't really a solution just to grant citizenship because of the status of Palestinians who already have it. Okay.
Okay. Is anybody else?
Well, let me
Yeah,
ask
I
you a
got my
question.
hand
I have a friend who
I have
is
my hand up.
I have a friend who's Irish, and she's always talking about the potato famine and how her family got killed and had to come to America, and so many people died. What's that got to do, if anything, with this northern southern, the Ireland and the Northern Ireland situation?
Well, when the famine was taking place in Ireland, entire Ireland was under the British occupation. So I don't know enough to tell you if the British anything to do with this or not, but we're talking about 19th century famine that affected so many Irish. Many of them came to US or other places or to England because of this.
Yeah,
But
she's still angry.
yeah, it was devastating. I know. I don't remember how many died, but it was a huge number
Millions,
of people
she says.
from starvation, right? But as I said in the beginning, if you remember, the root of the conflict is where settlers, Protestant settlers, moved from England to Scotland and took over the area of what we know Northern Ireland and displaced the Irish Catholic peasants from there. And the Irish, doesn't matter where they live, they wanted to be independent from England. And this was the compromise in 1922, the peace agreement between the Republic of Ireland and England. So they got independent minus 6 counties that called Ulster, where the Protestants were majority, which caused the conflict to keep going, Anyway, Tony, but you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yossi, the area known as Northern Ireland and was called Ulster, there was a tribe up there way back in the 11th, 12th, 13th century called the Ulrich, and Tir, T-I-R, means territory. So that was originally the territory of the Uller tribe, and that's how the word Ulster came to be. And that's why it's called that. The next thing that I wanted to do, in addition to thanking you for all of this, because the history that you presented to us is really important. The next thing I wanted to do was comment on the famine. The British would not allow farm products and meat to go into Ireland when it was being colonized by them. And that's one reason why, I mean, the only thing that the Irish could do was to raise potatoes. And no one knows for sure, but there was a fungus that grew into the potatoes and made them totally inedible and poisonous. And that's why there was such a movement to get out of Ireland, which played very well into the British hands because they wanted to, shall I say, ethnically cleanse the territory. It's pretty much a pattern of that we're kind of seeing now in the fantasy that is in the president's mind. So just 2 points that I picked up from knowing 19th century literature and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what my friend said, that the potatoes were poisoned.
Right.
Yeah, that's if you read the history, they were really a famine that prevented. And what happened, they were not allowed because of all these import-export law to put other crops there. So that was some of the issue. Anyway, I think, I don't know if that's relevant.
I have another quiz for you.
Actually, they grew crops. They grew crops in Ireland, but the British wouldn't let them use them. The crops had to be exported to feed England. So the only thing the Irish peasants could do was have the corners of the fields where they could grow potatoes.
So at any rate, Yossi, thank you very much.
Wait, I have another quiz.
Good presentation.
I have another quiz. Which famous boat was built in Belfast?
Oh.
What is it?
Huh?
What's the question?
What famous
boat was built in Belfast?
The Titanic?
Yes. I didn't know until I got to Belfast.
Yeah, the Titanic. Yeah, of course.
Okay, right.
It's the only famous boat I know.
It's another piece of information.
I think Jeff got a question, or did you ask your question, Jeff?
Me?
No, I still have a question.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Okay. You describe as a key meeting was this meeting in Britain with Prime Minister Major, where the generals in the two sides said that they can't win. And there has to
be... They cannot defeat the other side militarily.
Right. So, okay. So the question is, what made the Protestants ready to negotiate? Because as you described, the Protestants were the privileged ones. What made them decide that it would be in their benefit to negotiate?
Well, remember, during what they call troubles is the whole period where ongoing violence. In this period, 3,500 people killed in both sides. In a small nation as Northern Ireland of 1.9 million, life became unbearable, also for the privileged Protestants. No place in Belfast was safe. You could not have a normal life like this. And there was no light in the end of the tunnel. You know, I don't want to go again to the Israeli-Palestinians. You know, a lot of Israeli Jews now feel completely unsafe. They said Israel is the most unsafe place for Jews to live today. So when you have this kind of situation, 3,500 people killed, it sounds like not a big number, but in a small nation of only, I mean, before they start peace agreement, it was less than 1.9 million people, maybe 1.8 or I don't know. It's a huge number. And nobody can have a normal life. So those Protestants, the guy who participated in negotiations, he realized that this cannot have a normal life as long as the killing is ongoing. So they realize that they have to find another way. And the British general or British army told them, we cannot defeat the IRA. He knew it because I heard this in the first night from a panelist who was from the Ulster Union Party. Because the British told them, we cannot defeat. So you by your own almost. We cannot do this. So when he realized they were relying on the British army to fight for them, beside having their own small paramilitary groups, was smaller than the IRA. But when the British army tell them we cannot defeat the IRA, so what is the future? To get killed again and again and again, because each time, like I said, the police kidnap some activist or family of activists and threw them in a Protestant militant area, and the IRA was retaliating. So they killed some member or even union activist. And it's on and on and on. Or their business have been blown up by bombs, especially business, in order to hurt them economically. So with this kind of ongoing life, you start searching for something maybe that will stop it. This is what I believe eventually, I don't know in my lifetime, eventually the Israeli government or army is going to come to the sense also. There is no military solution, but right now we are not there, unfortunately.
Well,
unfortunately, not there.
I can say something that the Irish problem is civil rights problem, while Israel-Palestine is an occupation, military occupation. So that's a big difference.
Not really, because the positions of the IRA Sinn Féin in the beginning of the negotiations, they said they want Northern Ireland to be, they call it occupation, they wanted to be part of Ireland. Especially when the British army came to Belfast and basically act like an occupation force. The way they treat the Catholic, they act like an occupation force. And this is why IRA declared war on the British Army, to kick them out and join the Republic of Ireland. Of course, you have a peace negotiation. Every peace negotiation ends up with kind of compromise. And this was a compromise that the Sinn Féin and IRA concede for equal rights. Yeah, complete equal rights. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a random question? The passcode for this, for the passcode for the Zooms is 972972. I was just wondering if that has to do with the magazine, right? The 972 magazine.
It's
actually 972 is the country code for Israel.
Right.
And that's
so it doesn't have to.
That's what named the magazine, and that's what used it for this Zoom.
Uh-huh.
The Hebrew version of 972 called local call, because it's local in Hebrew.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. But yeah, so it's but I suggest we all read 972 anyway.
Yeah.
I read it every day.
Okay, I hope that you benefit from this talk. And
thank you.
I'm going to talk again in my retiree group called SAGE to give a presentation 10 days from now.
Are you retired now?
Oh yeah, a long time ago, 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, 8 years almost.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, 9 years. In June will be 9 years.
9 years, because now you're 74.
Thank you very much.
Right?
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Great presentation.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
Thank you. Good night.
okay.
See you next
Happy
month.